It is June 21, 2025, and this is episode 20. And the City Council has passed the budget for next year, but I thought I would wait until they put it out in final form before I say anything about it. But they finished that up on the 18th, I believe. And so they're probably going to be off for a couple of months now. So that'll give us time to look into some other issues that doesn't involve, the day-to-day activities of the City Council. And today I wanted to talk about transparency and accountability. You can't have one without the other, that's for sure. But back in April, before the budget process started, I submitted a 12-point transparency agenda for Cincinnati. And probably went over like a lead balloon, but if you try to watch what's going on in the city, you get a lot of, information 2 inches thick. They just go over the high points. And the same really with some of their daily posts on the internet. They do have information on the internet. You got to dig for it, and it's not always that well organized. So to a certain extent, that's a good thing that they have a lot of information on the website. But I think it's a matter of information overload. But I did come up with what I call my transparency agenda. And it's based on, observations that I made and trying to keep track of what's going on in the city. But a lot of it is geared towards accountability. I'm going to read the list I got 12 items. I'm going to read the items. But before I do, there are things that go on that we read about or that we hear about, and we get a little bit of information, but there's no follow-up. There's no getting to the bottom of what really happened. And I thought I would talk about 3 examples real quick. One is the bridge fire. We know that the people who started the fire have been charged. I think there's 3 or 4 defendants in that case, including 2 that were charged with arson and 1 or maybe 2 charged with obstructing the investigation. But the question came up during the investigation or during the news coverage of why that playground was located under that bridge. And there were people suggesting that there were federal regulations about what can go under the bridge, and that the playground may have violated that regulation. But you never hear whether that was ever looked into. And probably the reason why is because somebody in the city probably made a decision that maybe they shouldn't have made. And rather than get to the bottom of it and find out what really happened there, it's just forgotten about. It's just let go. So that's example 1. We really should know whether the city erred in placing that playground under that bridge according to federal regulations. Number 2 is this fleet situation. The situation with the 20 broken down snowplows during this snowstorm or winter storm Blair. And here we learned that 12 months earlier, the City Council, I don't know whether the City Council read the audit report or not, but a year earlier there was an audit report that went through the problem with the fleet, that there were over 600, almost 700 vehicles that were out of life cycle and needed to be replaced. I think the deficit was $60 or $80 million. And there was no action on the part of the city council when that report was issued beyond, the standard amount of money that they spend every year on fleet. There was no sense of crisis. Nobody looked at it and concluded this was a real problem we had to get into. And I think it would be good to know who dropped the ball. Who got that report, looked at it, understood what it was saying, and failed to act on it. Somebody should have acted on that report, and perhaps the crisis with the snow emergency last year in January of 25 could have been avoided or averted or minimized. And number 3, this goes back a little ways more, but something that has always bothered me is, if you remember, there was a housing development in the West End involving the Community Development Corporation and Habitat for Humanity, where one of the employees of the Development Corporation wound up benefiting from that housing development. And she basically bought this property, and there's questions whether she was even eligible to buy it, and then whether the way she occupied the house, she didn't occupy the house. She rented it out as an Airbnb, which clearly violated the rules. And the information, let's just say the information that she provided about her use of that house was not consistent with what was seen on the internet with respect to Airbnb. Very questionable, and could be an abuse of her position, and there probably could have been some other actions taken with respect to that situation. You never hear what happened with it. Nobody ever looked at it. Nobody ever wanted to get to the bottom of it. In other words, all 3 of those cases, you really have to wonder whether there was accountability that was achieved in those cases. So anyway, that's my view of transparency, is being able to find out what really goes on with some of these issues in the city. So my transparency list has 12 items. That's quite a bit. But a few of them I think I'm going to talk about today. But let me read them first. Number 1 is requesting public records. Number 2 is proactive disclosure of records. Number 3 is financial disclosures. Number 4, legislative agents. Number 5 are calendars and visitor logs. Number 6 is data advisory panel. Number 7, budget and financial records panel. Number 8, simplified agendas. Number 9, emergency ordinances. Number 10, cost accounting. 11, public comments. And 12 is oversight. Oversight is an oversight issue, but I plugged it under transparency because they go hand in hand. Oversight reporting is the ultimate transparency, because you go in and get to the bottom of things and basically do an anatomy of problems that the city has run into. That doesn't really go on. So that's why it's on the agenda. These are things that the city could do to advance transparency or strengthen transparency. But just to talk about a few, because I don't want to go on too long. And if you have any questions about any of these, I don't think I've ever given out the email address for the podcast. If you do have questions, you can email me at Todd Zinser at yahoo.com. So it's Todd Zinser at yahoo.com, and that's the address I use for my business with the city. Maybe as the podcast develops, we'll put together a separate email address and contact information for the podcast. So if you have any questions, you can use that. You can use that email, toddzinser at yahoo.com. So the public records request process is kind of a mess. They have it online, which is good. And so in terms of records of requests, that's fine. But in terms of getting records, it's basically a block and tackle operation where they're biased in favor of withholding versus biased in favor of disclosing. So that's what I say in my agenda. Reform the process for public records requests to foster a culture based in favor of disclosure and against routinely withholding documents. So that's a big one. It's very frustrating trying to get information out of the city, and it does seem that there is a bias there not to disclose, and apparently the state law is in their favor in a lot of cases, as I've spoken about before in my previous podcasts. Let's talk about the emergency ordinances. These have come up several times, and if you remember the podcasts about the missing audit, and I think the other one is we found the missing audit, but they talk about the recommendations of an audit firm that the city hired. And it noted that the city council used emergency ordinances in such a way that it was contrary to the intent. And one of the recommendations they made is that when you invoke or pass something by an emergency, you should give a reason why a real reason why it's an emergency. And if you don't, if you give some lame excuse like they gave on Connected Communities, the emergency was that they needed more housing, never mind that the whole plan was set forth as it would take 10 years to come to fruition, but it was an emergency. So that's the kind of thing the auditor found. They sampled a number of city council votes. They were supposed to audit city council actions taken on economic development projects, and they had a couple hundred projects that they looked at, and they looked at city council votes in connection with those projects on tax abatements and things like that. They sampled 36 of those ordinances, and 100% of them were done by emergency ordinance. So that's kind of what we're talking about. They really need to reform that, and I would implement the recommendation from Crow LLP, which is the audit report, or the audit firm that conducted that audit. And then a couple of other ones that I wanted to mention real quick. Cost accounting, as far as I can tell, the city does not keep track of how much money it spends, or what its costs are, I should say, for running the government and implementing some of these projects. And the ones I asked about the costs involved with the Connected Communities Plan or ordinance, effort, process, and records concerning the Green Cincinnati Plan. Both of those had to be very, very expensive. And I mentioned I made a public records request. And in that request, I noted, hey, listen, Columbus, it was reported that Columbus spent $3 million on their version of Connected Communities. How much does Cincinnati spend? And the responses you get back, it's like they don't have any idea what I'm talking about. And they never did produce any records. So I sent a letter to the city saying, hey, unless I see something, I'm going to go ahead and report that you don't really know how much those cost. And that to me is a big problem, that we don't keep track of what things cost when the project is carried out by city staff. And you can do it for the whole city operation. I would start with the city manager's office. But anyway, the other thing that I wanted to talk about, and so anyway, they should implement a cost accounting system, because that is transparent. How the city spends its money, what costs are involved in these projects, etc. And then the other one I wanted to talk about was public comments. when the city proposes an ordinance, it's supposed to go through 3 readings, and that's what the whole emergency ordinance issue is all about. But if they did do 3 readings, the purpose of that is to give the public an opportunity to know what's happening, to see the audit, to see what's in the, or see the ordinance, see what's ordinance is all about, and presumably to give the public the opportunity to comment. Well, I think they ought to create a system where members of the public can comment on things online and let people see what their fellow residents or fellow citizens think about the ordinances that the city is proposing. And you're going to get people in favor, you're going to get people opposed, but you're going to have a dialogue about what the city is planning to do. And there may be some where nobody makes any comments, but there are others where people are going to comment. And the city manager and the city council and the mayor would all be able to see that and take that into consideration. And, you know, people in the city can get a better understanding of what people's views are. It'd be very simple to set that up. And it would be similar to what the federal government does with proposed regulations. At the federal level, when a regulatory agent proposes a regulation, it has to go through a comment period. And members of the public are able to comment, and then the regulatory agent is obligated to review those comments and respond to them. So I think something like that ought to be put in place. And then the last one, oversight, is something that you never hear about in Cincinnati. Cincinnati has no interest whatsoever, that I can tell, in oversight of their spending and of their operations. Here we're going to have billions and billions of dollars put into the city in construction alone of the Brent Spence Bridge, the Western Hills of Viaduct, the Central Parkway redo, you name it. But there's going to be a lot of money spent in construction, and you have to wonder, how is the city going to know what's happening if they don't have some type of oversight program for those projects? And that's just those projects. There are all kinds of city activities that would require, that would benefit from proper oversight. But anyway, I thought since the city council was finished with its business before summer break here, that I would take the opportunity to let you know about the transparency agenda that I've got that will kind of be guiding me and what I look at in the months ahead. And again, if you have any questions, you can reach me at toddzinser@yahoo.com. Thank you.